1, 2. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 2nd, 2020 City Council meeting. Roll call. Oh, everything okay? Roll call. Everyone is present except for Councillor Jody Smith is absent. Invocation. We pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for the wisdom for all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and to do things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy, life-giving Spirit may ever dwell in their hearts, and that the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Item number 4, the public forum. We have a couple of letters. Dennis.
Mayor and councilors, we received 2 letters that were requested to be read to you this evening. The first is from the union president and union vice president from the police officers for the patrol union. It states, members of the council, at the September 21st, 2020 City Council meeting, the topic of low morale was brought up in a meeting, and the council questioned if there was any truth behind it. We thought that a letter with why morale is low in the police department would be the best way to get you this information. First off, Caribou PD has a building in disrepair, probably the worst in the state. Everything is outdated, and we have run out of space to accommodate the employees. Getting a facility that is up to modern standards would go a long way toward making employees more hopeful about the future. Our vehicle situation is not good. All of our cruisers have over 100,000 miles on them and are always in and out of the shop. Meanwhile, neighboring departments have brand new cruisers or cruisers that have half the mileage, and they can take their cars home with them. We understand that the council has looked at possibilities for a building, but have passed on this because they felt it would be too costly. The constant restarting of the process once it gets to the approval phase does not leave any of the officers with the impression that a station will be built anytime soon. We also understand that cruisers and buildings are expensive, but operating a police department with the high mileage vehicles out of a building that is falling apart is definitely not good for morale. For the past 5 years, we have been asking for an independent wage study that looks at other agencies in the state and compares Caribou PD with other agencies that have similar demographics. The city has chosen not to do this and to instead compare our agencies' wages only to Aroostook County agencies. Even this study had major flaws, which pushed the average wage down to an inaccurately low number. Some of those agencies are much smaller, and some of the figures cited for the ones listed are outdated. Van Buren is currently starting officers that are not academy certified at a higher wage than the $15 that was presented in the study. Take for one example, Fort Kent PD. They are a much smaller department and are starting officers at $21.56 an hour. Sorry, $21.56 an hour. They offer an additional hiring bonus, which was left out of the study. A Caribou PD officer that was full-time certification would need to stay here for 4 years to earn as much as a Fort Kent officer that is just starting out. And this does not even include their hiring bonus. An independent study conducted by a qualified outside party with no vested interest in the outcome is essential to improving employee morale and faith in the study's validity. Another point is that Caribou PD is offering a 50% retirement after 25 years with no COLA. Other agencies, including Presque Isle and Van Buren, are offering 66 2/3% retirement after 25 years with the COLA. A retirement plan that only offers half of the officer's current salary with no increases for cost of living is not practical. Both of those communities are also offering 85% municipality paid health insurance, contrasted with our 80%. Our retirement plan is not competitive, and neither is our health insurance contribution. The solution the city decided to go with to address the morale issues was sending out surveys to the officers. This would be a positive step, except that not every officer was asked to complete it. Multiple officers, including the union president and vice president, were not given surveys asking for their input. This leaves the officers with the impression that only certain employees' opinion matters and raises questions about the anonymity of the survey. We want to move forward with these morale issues and toward the good of the department and citizens we serve. In closing, if any member of the council would like to discuss these issues with the department, they are welcome to contact us, and we would be more than glad to have a sit down to clarify and elaborate on anything that was presented in this letter. Union President, Aaron Markey, Union Vice President. The second letter is addressed to members of the Caribou City Council, and was written by Madeline Blake, who is not a resident of the city, regarding history and genealogy resources provided by the Caribou Library. It says, Dear Mr. Marker, Ms. Schaefer, and members of the Caribou City Council, I write to express appreciation for the extensive collection of local history and genealogical materials housed at the Caribou Public Library, and for the unparalleled assistance provided by the archivist, Wendy Bossy, and local genealogist, Brenda Burgoyne and Alan Racine. My mother, Margaret McKinnon McGrath, a native of Caribou, and I visited for a few days in September. The main purpose of our trip was to visit the Caribou Public Library and review their primary and secondary source materials. As I am sure you know, the library has a substantial collection of local histories, indexed obituaries, indexed news articles, and family histories. In addition, the library has in its possession valuable primary source materials from local researchers and historians. The Aroostook County Genealogical Society also owns a large collection housed within the Caribou Library. Brenda serves as the archivist for the society, and Alan is one of the active members. It's wonderful that the library is able to serve as a repository for these materials, as they will only become more valuable and important over time. Such a well-organized collection will also likely generate additional donations in the future. Wendy, Brenda, and Alan provided extensive help during our visit. All three met us at the library and assisted with our research. They are extremely knowledgeable, both about local history and genealogy, as well as regarding the library's collection. Having their help made the collection very accessible. I think Wendy knows every last piece of paper in the basement file. Brenda located several pieces of previously unknown information about my family history, allowing me to make great progress with my research. And Alan found a piece of missing information that was perhaps most memorable. The gravestones for my mom's grandparents in the Caribou Holy Rosary Cemetery had fallen down and over time disappeared. My mom really wanted to erect new markers, but we were unable to determine the date my great-grandmother died. Alan scoured many sources and eventually located an old newspaper copy of her obituary from which we were able to find the death date. Because we found this information, my mom was able to have new headstones made. They were installed a week ago in the Holy Rosary Cemetery. As you can imagine, this was extremely meaningful for my mom, and we are very grateful for this assistance. I can't close without mentioning the wonderful Old Iron Inn bed and breakfast where we thoroughly enjoyed our stay, especially my mom, who remembered playing and visiting that house as a child, and we had a delicious dinner at the Brew Pub restaurant. Thank you for a very enjoyable stay. We will be back.
Any letters, Hope? Danielle?
No.
Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak? Hearing none, I'll close number 4, the public forum. I'd just like to say real quick, as a counselor, as one of 7, how nice it is to get letters like these. They can either be pro or con to our philosophy of how we do things, but it's a way to start a conversation in the correct way. And it's just enjoyable to get it. Thank you very much for both of those people for putting their thoughts on paper. You.
I got some questions in regard to that first letter. That's all right?
Go for it.
So the 3 paragraphs on here, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, those are all kind of collective bargaining issues? Like, don't those things get squared away and negotiated during collective bargaining?
definitely that's the time to bring these issues up, yes.
And we negotiated that in 18? Was that when we,
19, we had,
was that, I don't remember if it was 18 or 19, but I remember we had quite a few meetings. Is this stuff they didn't ask for, or they're new, or?
some of the things that they're asking for, again, there's concerns about how we perform, for instance, the wage study. There was some input that we had from officers and some information that yeah, we can bring these things up again when we start the negotiations and when we can moving forward.
I mean, they're within their rights to ask for any of these things. Okay. So the thing about the survey, I remember you'd mentioned you gave, I mean, I'm sure everybody got the survey. It just depended on who decided to return it, right?
The indication that not all the officers received the survey, we sent the survey out. There was apparently some officers that were not on the initial mailing list, but they notified me of that. The survey was sent to all of the officers. But you're right, it was a matter of who was willing to respond or not.
Okay. Cruisers, I assume those are on some kind of replacement schedule? Is that, so was it based on years or mileage or?
Utilization, even though it may have 100,000 miles, doesn't mean it's not unsafe, so.
Right.
They're always safe. It's fine when we know it costs us more to maintain it than we raise it.
So it's not uncommon to have a piece of equipment that has 100,000 miles on it. And then the last question I had regarding the building, Joan, you may be able to speak to this as well as anyone, at least since I've been on here. Anything that needed to go into this building, I don't think this council's ever said no. I mean, has that been the case going back for you, or?
Well, what happened was 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago now, a committee was formed, about 20 people on there. It was a safety building advisory committee. And at the time, it was a safety building, which was a combined fire department and police department, because we were under the assumption that there was a 50% grant that the police department would not qualify for, but the fire department would. And so we started out with a safety building and went through all the scenarios. The architect came up, and there were 4 options given to us at the time, and we went with option 1, which was a safety building. And I can't remember, I think it was $13 million or something like that it was going to cost, but we were under the assumption that there was going to be a 50% grant. So we voted for that, the committee, and then we found out that there was no 50% grant. So we went back and did some more research and came up with some different scenarios for just a police station. And that is kind of where it got stuck, because now we're looking at different, we thought that the option 1 included going to the old Bird's Eye lot. So now we're back to, do we build there? Do we look for something else? So we, as you know, we've gone back and forth on different scenarios, but then the ball kind of dropped.
So that was 2 years ago. Like, I know it was this was before your time,
Before COVID.
Dennis, but like 2014, when the renovation was done here on the main floor, was there anything planned for down there? Okay.
I don't think that they did a study, but it wasn't with the new law, the new building codes and everything, it wouldn't have been workable.
Was, just to clarify, when we did I wasn't here at the time, but there was money allocated toward renovations of this building upstairs, primarily on the main floor, and some
Right.
for the downstairs. Is that right, Chief? some money was set aside for the renovations, but
Correct. There were,
the whole renovation did not get finalized.
there was money set aside for painting and flooring.
Yeah, it was only about $40,000, I think, if
Actually,
I,
it was only $20,000.
or 20, yeah.
Just,
Just enough to kind of spruce it up until, because we thought that we would go forward with the plans, and then it kind of just got dropped.
Is there any reason we couldn't do that?
Well, actually, what, to go forward again, or,
No. To just put new flooring in and painting, kind of like a.
at the time, we were moving forward to a
Right.
new facility. I couldn't see putting $20,000 in something that ended up being stored
right,
for paint and flooring. Because that's all it would have covered.
Okay. Thank you, Hugh. Number 5, bid award recognitions and appointment. Dennis, T Park Splash Pad.
Mayor and council, I'm going to ask Mr. Marquis to come up and address this with us a little bit.
Evening, Mayor, councilors. We've been working with the contractor that put out the bid, and we were able to negotiate down an extra or less $40,000 off the initial bid that was sent over to us at the beginning of October. And as you can see in the memo that Mr. Marker sent out, what we need left to finish the project would be about $214,000 to continue with this project. Again, I was able to cut costs on the construction of the bid on the electrical piece and a few other minor details that we were able to negotiate with Bucks Construction, which is the only bidder that bid the project. With the subcontractors would be Soderbergh Construction for the groundwork, Patrick St. Peter was the plumbing, and R.L. Todd was the electrical contractor. Just trying to become creative on how we're going to fund this project, and coming here tonight to see what we can come up with and how we can fund this project. This project's been going since 2014, since we closed the pool down in 2013. The school project had come in and had asked for our property. So this project has been on the table now for several years. So
As we've looked at that deficit, if you will, of the project, $214,000, we know one of the options that's not listed in here is rescale the project to fit the funds that are available. The concern is that might make for a small splash pad and not be the community amenity that has been anticipated through the whole process. But we recognize that that is one of the options. At the same time, the council, when they motioned in July 27th, when we move forward and purchase the splash pad equipment, we've done that. It's actually been moved onto the property now and is sitting there on the site. But we haven't finalized as far as the site prep and the construction and ways of trying to save as much or more cost out of this as we can. At the same time, we don't have enough reserve funds that we can pull from other accounts as far as the recreation reserve funds to make the project whole. We don't anticipate there's going to be enough savings in this year to roll into the project. The TIF funds are not programmed for this type of a project, so we can't use any TIF funds. A couple of options that we've looked at as far as short-term loans. The Maine Municipal Bond Bank has a rate about 2.5% right now. If we were to do a 5-year short-term loan with that, it's roughly a $54,000 a year payment. Another option that we've explored as of just even today, Rustic Waste Solutions being an owner community in that organization makes it so that we would be allowed to, in a sense, loan against the Rustic Waste Solution reserves. We'd have to work it out with our auditors. Their auditors have said it would be okay. And the rate that I talked with Mr. Draper about on that earlier this morning is, was it 1.5%? So for 5 years. The other option is knowing that it's a project we want to get done. I think that's built into the capital projects for next year. It's a full payment if we don't want to have any of that debt hanging over our heads. But at the same time, we've talked through these budget processes of trying to smooth the impacts on the citizens as much as we can. And in that sense, if we don't cut any more out of the project, and we're trying to get that full amount, that full 214, the way to lessen the impact on the citizens is really to look at a short-term loan and try to pay this off over a series of years rather than just next year. These are thoughts that you have as a council.
What are we short?
$214,441.
That's if we don't go and touch any of the other reserve accounts.
Correct.
Well, I guess I'd like you to go through, well, I'm just one of 7. Okay, I guess I'd like to, first of all, when do we have to have this decided on? Where this money's coming from?
It doesn't have to be done tonight. No.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to have someone go through the reserve account and say, what can we do without in this account, knowing that we're still going to be short. I get it.
Correct.
And whatever's short after that. Now, is there anywhere in these examples of what we could do, can't we loan ourselves some money from the rainy day fund?
That certainly is an option.
We don't have to drag in AWS. It seems like to me it'd be a lot simpler if we just lent ourselves the money. With the commitment that we get paid back. Not like the streetlight deal. I knew the streetlight deal was never going to get paid, but this one here is the one that we'd like to have paid back. One of 7. I don't mean to go.
I think either way, AWS or the rainy day fund, we probably ought to draft up a document that is in a sense binding upon us.
Very
so
good.
that we know that commitment is going to be upheld in future budgets.
Very good.
If you want to burn the calories to do the AWS draft, I suppose that's fine. I'm more in favor of tapping into the rainy day fund, knowing full well we're going to eventually pay ourselves back. That way we don't drag interest in it, we don't drag banks into it. And this project gets done, and it gets done right. And it gets done with what we want. There's too many times in the past where we haven't gotten what we want out of a project, and it just sits there and does nothing. Boilers being one of them. You know, this is something for the children of this community and the children of surrounding communities. And we need to do this, we need to do it right. And I think looking at the rainy day fund, full aspirations of paying ourselves back, I think that's the best course of action.
Typically, when a city will do that, loan itself money, there is still an interest rate that's attached to it. We recognize that the rainy day fund, being in the bank right now, is accruing some minimal amount of interest. And so it's a practical thing to be able to say, okay, yes, it's $214,000, and we're loaning it to ourselves. The citizens still have to pay for it. It's a 0.5% better than we're getting right now on our checking account, but setting some kind of interest rate as a way of paying back those funds so that we're not losing anything by having to use those funds.
Doug, anything?
Yeah,
Go.
sorry. Gary, we discussed how the piping and the cabinets already kind of
Yep.
fell apart. It's already been
Yep.
taken care of, so I'll get back to you tomorrow. My wife and I are going to make a financial contribution to the project. I'll get with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Up to something.
Joe?
I agree 100%. In fact, I had that in my mind, that maybe that was something we could do. Because this project, the kids have been without a pool for a long time, and they deserve to have something like this, and the sooner the better. It would have been nice to have it this summer, but, oh well, maybe we'll end up getting another summer just like that. But I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Same. I think it's really critical that we move forward with this project. We promise it to families and community members. If we can take it from the rainy day fund and pay ourselves back, even better. But I think we need to exhaust all efforts to make it happen.
Agreed.
Okay. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Marker.
Where am I?
Mayor,
Go.
I just wanted for the record too, I did agree with the pouring of the funds.
Okay. Here you go.
So I'll bring back onto the next agenda a resolution, if that's okay, something that outlines the parameters of this loan to ourselves, so that we have that moving forward.
After you go through the reserve accounts, see what we can do within there. But I also got the impression is we want this to be a good quality product when we're done.
Right.
Okay. And so, yes, come back with a resolution at the next whenever you can. Okay, this is the part of the agenda where we're going to talk about the 2021 budget. We have a few more departments to go through. So I'll turn it over to item 6. Dennis, budget forms.
You know how excited we are to get these done tonight?
Yes, you've got it.
And,
Can I interrupt you for just a second? We're all going to go vote, or have voted, and on there is a question about the charter and when we set the budget. In this particular case, the expense budget. And currently, we have to have it done on November 15th. No, December 15th.
there are two dates.
Go for it. Explain it.
November 15th is when I have to present to the council and the citizens the manager's proposed budget. And December 15th is when the council is supposed to adopt the budget for next year.
And we're in the process of doing that right now. If that item when we vote tomorrow was to pass the charter amendment, then it would be up to the next council to set the expense budget.
Yes, that is correct.
This would be voided. Well, no, we haven't made any decisions.
Right.
Just, yeah, if they wanted to go through it again, they could go through it again.
Yes.
Got it. Didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to have that on the record, so to speak, of what's going to happen if that were to pass. If not, but we have to go through this process as if it's not going to pass.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Dennis.
Okay. So tonight, we're reviewing the general government account, which involves administration, the clerk's office, the finance office. We have Fund 11, which is our economic development funds, primarily derived through our TIFs and the programs there. We also have tax assessing, the police department, housing, and our FSS. And then the final treat of the night is reviewing the capital facilities and equipment plans. We've been going through those with each department. And tonight, I wanted to just review the whole capital plan, everything put together in one piece and have a discussion on that. The hope that I have after tonight, because I have to have my budget done by November 15th, is that when we get these numbers done, presented, and the public input provided, that you as a council will provide me a little more direction the way you would like me to go in preparing the budget for next year, so that I can incorporate those reasonings or methods into my report for the 15th meeting. I mean, this is all the exercise, as you pointed out, Mayor, of if it doesn't pass tomorrow, this is the process we're going to be going through.
But if it passes, we don't have to do this.
Right,
You don't have to give us a report
right.
on November 15th. If I'm understanding how this works,
That's correct.
okay?
Just playing the side of the caution that it's not, but
Understandable.
you never know. So in general government, as I said, we have administration, the clerk's office, and administration. The first thing is salaries. Again, we recognize that we have 53 weeks, 53 pay periods in the year. And that we have right now in the budget a 1% wage increase. There have been changes in the staffing within general government, and so that's resulted, rather than a 3% salary increase, which would account for the 1% plus the extra pay period, we're only looking at a 0.4% increase for the year. The city council salaries are currently staying the same, and the office supplies, one of the big changes there, you'll see that the postage is down 14.3%. We expect a lot less postage going out next year with the reduction in the elections. And our clerk's office has been very busy creating its own post office service, getting the absentee ballots out. And so we expect some reduction in that line. The copier rental is shown at a 13.2% increase. However, we do have a new clerk's copier coming online in 2021, and so that may go down a little bit based on the rates that we've been able to get. We'll know for sure later on that. The annual report, just so you know, this year that is prepared by Denise Lozier, my assistant, and once again she was recognized as an excellent in preparing that by Maine Municipal Association. I would like to have her come back another time and recognize her more formally with that, but we did reduce the number of pages in the report this year as well as the number of copies in order to try to reduce some of the expenses with that report. Legal fees, we have 3 pending grievances still, and so we hope that will get resolved in 2021, but with those we've budgeted an increase to the legal fees. The audit is a $1,000 increase, or a 6.1%. We've utilized the same auditor for several years. They provide a great service to us. We did, as in going through the charter, a little more of the fine-tooth comb this year. We found that we are supposed to put that service out to bid, and we can do that on an annual basis or a 3-year basis. And so we anticipate we'll have to go out for auditing services in 2021. The travel expenses, you'll see that there's a significant increase there for meals and lodging, conference fees, training expenses. The assumption is, this is probably a far assumption, is that we'll be able to return back to normal and people will be able to go to conferences in person. So this line in particular may come down quite a bit because of online trainings and conferences still may be being the norm in 21. The The other item, some good news. We found out that late last week on health insurance. Up until now, we've been assuming an 8% increase in health insurance, and that's a draft day fight. The insurance notified us that we will only have a 2% increase on our health insurance rates this year. The Maine Municipal Association Board elected to tap into their own reserves in order to keep overall rates down for everybody across the state that is served by the Maine Municipal Trust. And so we appreciate their willingness to do that. The concern is next year that may go up quite a bit. Of course, we don't know, but this year we do have a reprieve on the health insurance rates. We're still waiting for more information on our insurances. We did hear just this evening that the workers' compensation rate, we'd assumed that would be going up 5%, and we found out that we're actually going to see a decrease in our workers' comp rates, anywhere between 15 and 18% reduction. And so that's a positive for us that way. On page 6, the vehicle repairs and vehicle tires. I just want to highlight here the combination of those $3,400. The tax assessing department and the general government, we basically share 3 commuter vehicles. And we have $3,400 in here. Basically covers 1.5 of the costs associated with those 3 vehicles. That includes a 2008 Ford Taurus, a 2014 Ford Taurus, and a 2011 Chevy Malibu. The 2014 Taurus is an old squad car that's been repurposed. Not our squad car, but someone else's found for a good deal. And so they are getting old and needing repairs and mechanical services. Any questions on the operations side of general government?
Just real quick, Dennis, 3 pending grievances. What departments? Are we allowed to talk like that?
We have 2 in the police department and 1 in public works.
Okay. 1 public works. I guess my point on this would be you put it in general government, I guess. It's nice to know what it costs each of the departments, and if it's a grievance coming from that department, the cost of that department should be reflected in the cost of that department. But especially if it was fire and ambulance, and we're trying to set rates for outside communities, that we know what our true costs are. Last budget, we talked about retirement. But these are things we can talk about as we go down through the process of the budget. Okay?
The invoices that we receive from the attorneys, they do specify which cases they've been working on as far as those bills are concerned. So when the time comes that these are resolved, we can certainly go back, review those invoices, and have a dollar amount.
Yeah. Thanks.
To each of them.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions on operations? Right now, the bottom line is a 1.5% increase over the 2020 budget. The capital for general government is on page 18 of the packet. It's the rose color, if you will, on the bottom of the slide. everything's all rosy in general government all the time. The primary lines here we're looking at, we've anticipated replacing one of the vehicles that is in our general government fleet, one of the three, and we have some reserves already built up for placement of that. The clerk's office, we've talked about in the past about continuing work on codifying, or I'm sorry, binding, or going back through some of the old books and trying to get those rebound so they can last longer. That's the Vital Records Restoration Project for $2,500. And we're looking at 2 new office computers and 1 CAD level computer. Those, as we look at the computers in the office, there is basically a 4-year rotation that we look at for those. Any computers that we take out of rotation, we are able to surplus and make available through the city surplus site. I don't know if you have any questions on capital requests for general government. I'll also just point out that the general government fleet, if you will, and those vehicles are used by multiple departments, even beyond tax assessing and general government. They're just kind of catch all. If there's a need to drive downstate or go to trainings, those are available. Okay. Fund 11, Economic Development. And Christina is here tonight. She'll have some information to share as well. And I'll just keep going if Christina, you want to come up and be ready. The Economic Development Fund, these are funds that come through the TIF program that the state has approved us to have in certain areas of the city. And this is what we would consider an enterprise fund, in that the money that comes in, we don't overspend it, and it's all based on a set fee or amount that we know in advance. It's really dependent upon the mill rate that ultimately gets set and the valuation that we have. And so in 2021, we haven't gone through a mill rate study yet for 2021. We've assumed that at this point, the same revenues that we're projecting for 2020 will be those that are available in 21. And so you see that there's a slight reduction of almost $20,000 between 20 and 21. The fund itself includes portions of different staff members' wages. So it's a 100% for Christina. It's 25% for my time, and also for Kim Murchison's time, and a very small amount that goes toward Mr. Gary Marquis' time with the role that he plays in the snowmobiles and working very closely with the business community the way he does for that. We did have in the past an economic development intern to help Christina with events and activities and marketing. That was roughly $5,000. We've pulled that out of the budget for 21. And so that's why for the salaries, even with the 53 weeks and the 1% COLA, you see a 1% reduction in that line this coming year. Beyond that, I don't know if Christina, you wanted, some of these have stayed the same. Health insurance, again, the number that you have in your packet, $11,537, that's the 8% rate. With the 2%, we'll actually see an $814 savings off of that number. And
most of the budget numbers, as far as what I have, are events. So you know how 2020 played out. So everything that was pretty much everything in there for events that was in there for 2020 will roll back into the reserve for the TIF fund. And I just went ahead and asked for the same amounts for 2021, not really knowing what's going to happen yet, but being hopeful that we will be able to have events. I went ahead and set some of the dates. This really is just May forward, because I'm really not thinking January, February, March will be much. We kind of gauge some of our events too on some of the national level events. So like the marathon, we look at the Boston Marathon. Boston's already canceled for April, and they're saying sometime in the fall for next year. So it's kind of a waiting game on some of the events, but we just went ahead and asked for the same. I went ahead and asked for the same amount of money as last year. But like I said, what we didn't use will roll right back into the reserve for the TIF.
So again, these funds, because they've been approved by the state under certain programs, we can't, if we don't spend all the TIF funds that we receive in the year, we can't roll those into the general revenue fund of the city. We have to purpose those into a specific TIF reserve.
Right.
And so some of the things that you'll also see here, you'll see we budgeted another $25,000 to go into the revolving loan fund, so we can continue to build that up. Under the TIF program, we can put up to $1 million into that fund. We're still floating a little over $500,000 in that, and so we can start to continue to put more money in there. We've also increased. Well, we kept the slum and blight removal line at $90,000, but we've added $25,000 as land bank seed money. The intent here is that we'll be able to get the land bank organized, operating, and in order for them to just have some initial capital to start working with, that $25,000 is there. The facade improvement grant funds, we reduced that from $15,000 to $12,000 because we didn't spend very much of that this year. We don't have to put as much. Again, those funds roll over into future years, but the indication here is that we would put $12,000 of new TIF funds into that account. When the time comes in the spring to roll out the 2021 facade program, the council can say if they want to put more money into that than the $12,000, if you would like. I also want to highlight the last line of this is the fund, or the line 413 new fire station. Under the approved TIF program, we can put $1 million towards upgrades or reconstruction of a fire station in the city. So I bring that up because so far we've put $197,000 toward that effort. In that, I would say it's built up over time, and some of these TIF funds are what we're tapping for the reserve of the reconstruction project on the fire station. And so there is a potential that some additional TIF funds, if we wanted to, we could put toward that capital project next year as an upgrade to the fire station. So I want to just highlight that. Any questions on?
Dennis, how come the workman's comp, where's that line?
The workers' comp for economic development,
Correct.
it's in general government.
It's in general government?
The larger departments have their own workers' comp line,
Yeah?
but this one goes into the general government.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
So what percentage of work comp for Christina out of the general fund or general government? I guess.
We'd have to calculate it.
If you could, please.
Wouldn't it be Wouldn't it be just as well to carry the line so when we're looking at this stuff, we know, when we're looking at each department in this scenario that
It's that old verbiage. You can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Oh, that's okay. I can, yeah. They're tentative dates, but.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the tax assessing department, I've asked our assessor to come and present those numbers. Unless you have other questions?
Economic development has no
No capital.
So the marathon, that's just the general ledger account?
Yes.
Let's just say we wanted to put $50,000. Let's say we wanted to pay up the marathon debt. Does it go through? It goes through the rec department? No?
Nope, it'd be TIF. So what we would, if you want to do that, we can either put it into new TIF funds for 2021, or we can look at the TIF reserve that we have and have the council by resolution move funds between the reserves to offset the numbers, if you want to do that.
Okay. I need to think that one through. Yeah, go ahead. I apologize. Yep.
But yeah, we're currently running, I think it's a negative 34,000 on the marathon line in the general ledger.
Okay, but I'm confused. I think I got confused in my own brain. The marathon isn't under economic development.
No, a lot of my accounts that, a lot of the accounts that I get sponsorships for are in different, they're not within the TIF fund. The funds don't get allocated into the TIF fund. They go into separate accounts. So marathon, arts and craft fair, yard sale, those are all on their own. And there's the miscellaneous events as well. I don't really use that one.
They are separate reserves on the general ledger, and she works within those funds as kind of in and out funds.
Okay.
But as far as the marathon deficit that we have,
We've been chipping away at it, but it's one that I inherited.
But if the council wanted to, I don't mean to take up time, but if, my point was this, if we wanted to pay off that debt, doesn't it go through a department to get to the general ledger?
if we're going to use the TIF funds, then it's moving it from one reserve to that one, basically, through the finance department.
Got it. Okay. Go ahead.
we're holding a negative, what was the amount you said? 30,
35?
It's roughly 35,000.
and that is, I heard her mention it was inherited.
The overall plan, or the overall marathon, the first year, we had a consultant come in and provide a lot of services for it. And with that consultant, they charge us a pretty penny to come in, nuts and bolts, everything start to finish on a marathon. And since then, There's been a learning curve for the city staff. They've been taking over some of the operations, trying to do more in-house, and so that we can build back the overall cost of the marathon.
So excluding that, the years after that, we're breaking even,
Yeah, we're doing well. I mean, I think we've brought it down from 48 to 32, I think is what it is now. So each year,
but each year we operate and we're putting this on, are we doing it at a loss is my, you know, if in 2022 you want to do a marathon, are we losing money putting a marathon on?
no, we're taking what we're making and chipping away at the deficit.
Okay,
so.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
As long as, it's one thing to have stumbled in the beginning, as long as we're not stumbling on every.
No, yeah, we've been making.
Okay, thank you.
Again, like I say, the staff have been, they learned the first year from the organizer. There have been volunteer efforts. Christina's been much more active in the sponsorship realm. And so a lot of the goodie bags, the bling bags, and all of those things, almost all of that is sponsor provided. And so there are still some costs. The race bibs themselves, the timing systems, the large tents and some of the bleachers and things. We're looking into how can we save even more costs with our own staff and equipment to make things work.
Thank you.
Tax assessing,
God love her, she's got a trail worn up there, up and down.
Penny's getting her steps in tonight.
Right.
So, good evening, Mayor Gahn, members of the Caribou City Council, and citizens watching tonight on YouTube and Spectrum. My name is Penny Thompson, and I'm your tax assessor, chief building official, and wedding officiant here at the City of Caribou. Tonight, I'm here to answer questions about the department budget for tax assessment, which has also included code enforcement since 2015. The department currently has 3 full-time and 1 part-time employee. In 2020, additional hours were worked by the local plumbing inspector due to the unexpected variety of subsurface wastewater-related violations experienced within the city. This increase was also factored into the 2021 proposed budget. I also prepared a handout. Christina had asked us to do a flyer about our departments, which is where I came up with the front, and then there seemed to be some confusion about certifications, so I thought I would use the back of the flyer to talk about different certifications in our department. And so on the back, there's a breakdown of certifications held by staff members. Historically, required trainings have involved travel. For tax assessment, code enforcement, and the main uniform building and energy code courses, in-person attendance has been required. In 2020, trainings were provided via Zoom and other online platforms, which has reduced travel expenses. There is a slight overall increase in travel and training budget lines in 2021, as the American Planning Association Conference will be held in Boston, and therefore Mr. Marker and Mr. Murchison are planning to attend. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Murchison is also in attendance if you have questions for him. We can also be reached at the contact information on the handout. A lot of the lines in the actual budget are given to us by the Finance Department and Mr. Marker. Again, it's been talked about ad nauseum about the 53 weeks. You can see some things change on one line in the negative, then the increases on another line. Professional dues is up some. For every time we have different credential certifications, that does result in higher dues. This year, a lot of the professional organizations that we belong to offered a lot of free trainings this year when they were online. Some did not, but a lot of ours, like the New England Building Official Education Organization, the Maine MBOIA, Maine Building Inspectors and Officials Association. They've had a lot of trainings, which actually came at a very good time because both Tony Michaud and I have to recertify all of our code enforcement and MUBEC certifications in January of 21. So we've been able to get a lot of those right from our desk. Actually, sometimes we set it up and come in here because it makes it seem more like a class. I just use the projector, and the better thing is we can, talk about the concepts as we're going through the class, which you can't do that when you're in a real class, which is nice. We make notes about how we can improve things in our department. Again, training and education, I spoke about that. A lot of these things, again, we get from the manager or from the finance department. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Dennis, did you?
Just wanted to highlight the health insurance line here. The 4220 is the 8% increase that we were previously looking at. With the 2% increase, we'll actually see a savings of $2,914 on that line. So it would only be a 0.7% increase rather than 8.3%. And I want to just also mention with the health insurance that we have, so the city offers certain health insurance through the municipal, and depending on the employee's life changes or preferences, our costs can fluctuate. And so the numbers that we've plugged into the budget so far are assuming that everybody keeps their insurance preferences the same. And so if that is the case, and then we'd be looking at only a 0.7% increase over last year rather than the 8.3%. Our open enrollment period actually starts later this week. We'll be sending out information to the employees, and they'll be able to return back to us what their preferences are for 2021. And then we'll be able to fill in the final numbers on all the health insurance lines based on new numbers, or new preferences, sorry. Another just quick tidbit, you'll see under line 40, city and state retirement. The city does provide some retirement benefits for its employees, 3.5% match of retirement funds, but not every employee is participating in that, and that's one reason why you'll see only a 0.7% increase there rather than the 3.3% increase, which would be indicated by the wage increases in line 1. And you'll see that same pattern in all the other departments as well. Not everybody is participating.
Thank you.
The capital for this department is on page 21 of your packet. It's the very last training lines. Their requests are very small. You'll see that there's $1,200 for a CAD level laptop. This is part of the process we've been working with Penny Thompson on, as far as being able to do our revaluation of the city in-house. And part of that is getting her a laptop that is more robust and able to handle some of the GIS functionality that we need to do that. And so that's the $1,200 CAD laptop. The plotter scanner for $7,500. This was a request last year as well. The intent being that as we have more neighborhood meetings and public meetings, being able to produce much larger scale maps for presentations, and not have to rely upon other outside agencies to print off those maps and go and fetch them and bring them out. But those are the two capital requests right now.
On my computer, I'm gonna go down this road. On my computer, I can't bring up the tax map anymore.
Oh, no kidding.
Uh,
Oh, but are you talking about the one that UMPI does for us, or our regular tax maps?
You know, the one that used to say who owned the property, what it's
Oh,
valued
yeah.
at, what was the reason I used to get it, but now I
It
can't
had
get it
something
in.
to do with Google Earth. I'm not sure. Do you remember, Mr. Meyer?
There was something with Google. I remember Councilor Kirkpatrick asking if we can't get the ghost text brought off of things. We have updated the parcel information, and we have made it available in what's called a KNZ file.
Okay, it had nothing to do with having to pay some kind of membership fee so that we could have access to it.
No,
Okay.
unless you're willing to pay a membership fee for that.
No, I heard a lot of people and a lot of real estate people have told me that that was quite a nice service to have, to be able to figure that out and gets a lot of things done.
I used it every day.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's an updated map. It's not like the Google map, which is old, like 2014.
Oh, yeah. So it's an educational thing on my computer that I gotta figure out. Okay, fair enough. Well, there's other people that aren't getting it
Yeah.
either. There's something
All,
that,
all I do is you go to Google, type in Caribou, Maine GIS, and it brings you right there. You go to the parcel map, and it pops straight up.
and before I was going through the city website.
We'll make sure that we've got the links.
See, that's how I was doing it, by going through the city website. Okay, well, if it doesn't cost any money, and if it's just a question of an IT guy coming in figuring it out, I wouldn't mind.
It's actually a partnership between Tax Assessing Office and Ken Murchison and UMPI, the GIS program there. They've been willing to work with us in getting information updated and have our students involved with that. And so we appreciate them in helping us out with it. But we'll
Okay.
make sure we get links up where we need to.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
Before you sit down, Penny,
Yep,
I noticed a certificate of occupancy for the school.
yep.
What does "for the most part" in parentheses mean?
That is a cover your behind moment that we have on certificates of occupancy.
So, for the most part means they still have things that they need to
No, that we
complete?
just put that on all of them, so if there's something that we've missed,
Yeah.
that can happen in a project of any size, honestly, that's just standard
Standard.
language. Like if you look in the IBC, it will even, I think it may say for the most part, or it may phrase it something differently, but it's the same kind of thing.
Have you been in the school after you gave a certificate of occupancy?
I have not. Kevin Bowman was actually not here last week. He was hunting. So I'll be touching base with him this week. We actually have a meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, yeah.
So the last day that I was there, everything was pretty much set at that point. Interior, they're still working on the fencing, still working on Teague Park demo. Those are supposed to be done before the students come in.
And
We'll see how that goes on
Will
Thursday.
it be done, do you think, by next Monday?
I think so. I think they're working hard on it. They've got good people. They have good local contractors working on that.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the things I heard from a lot of people were very complimentary towards our local subs that they used. I heard nothing but good things.
Okay. I just
Which is
wanted
good.
to-
I see some of them would be working on the splash pad project too.
Yes.
Yeah, and I heard lots of good feedback from a lot of different contractors about that.
I just remember getting a C of O and never seeing, for the most part, on ours.
It was, it's probably there.
Probably not.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Penny.
I would say when I type them up, they say that.
Okay.
Mayor, can I take a quick tangent since the school building has been brought up?
Go for it.
The school superintendent, Mr. Doak, has invited the city council to take a special tour of the building, if you would like, at your group leisure. So if the council, if you want to set a date and time later this week, during the day or evening, they said that they would be willing to give you a special tour of the whole building.
Is there a ribbon cutting planned?
I haven't heard of a ribbon cutting event specifically.
We're not gonna let, well, never mind. Be nice to have a ribbon cutting. Social distancing and all that stuff. But. Okay.
He said that he's willing to do individuals or the group as a whole. So if you'd like to let me know, I guess, what your thoughts are, I can coordinate that.
I think it would be nice if the council could get together and go for a tour.
Preferably this week instead of next when they're in school, or?
I would agree.
Agree what?
Sometime this week rather than next week after the,
Okay.
of course, if you do it next week after school hours, that, then you could see the full product.
Okay. Go.
I went through today at noon with Rotary. It's very impressive. So I would need to go through again. So
Let's all hit the computers tomorrow and email each other and see what's good. And let's try well, it's all dependent on on the school, but how about like a Thursday or a Friday? Friday's probably bad. Well, just see. We'll see what we got.
Okay. I know late afternoons tends to be when the meeting gets set.
For late afternoon. Okay. I can on Wednesdays, but I don't want to hold anybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Wednesday.
I can on Wednesday.
Well, there you go. We'll do this tomorrow over the internet.
Okay, so
Right,
we're
first thing in the
tentatively
morning.
looking for Thursday, Friday, late
Yeah.
afternoon this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you'll just shoot me a quick email
Mm.
Thursday or Friday, if that's gonna work for you, then you know, kind of coordinate it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We now have the police department, so invite the chief to come up.
Like all the other departments, we also have 53 weeks next year. We'd like to have 52, but we have 53. Not a lot of changes. We did add quite a bit of change for the reserve officers. I've had officers out on medical leave and officers getting done, so we've been utilizing, luckily, our reserve officers to fill in that spot. So we reduced regular pay and overtime and moved it over into the reserve officers. Everything else on that page,
Chief, can we just highlight that some of the discussions that you and I have had is with regards to the SRO with the schools, because of the school policies on COVID, we're not quite sure what his schedule is going to be from week to week, depending on how students come down with symptoms or not. And so we're a little concerned about with his schedule being as unpredictable as it may be, rather than backfill his position for 2021. That's the other reason why we've just put more money into the reserve account, so that we're just utilizing reserves to backfill that. And then when he's not working for the school district, he's able to fill back in as he needs to.
Is the SRO going to bounce between the new community school and the high school?
that was our recommendation. but that's up to the school where they put it. But Mr. Doak and I talked today, and 3 days down at the middle school and 2 days at the high school, or vice versa, whatever they can utilize them.
So let's say he's at the middle school and there's an emergency at the high school. Would you route your SRO from the
If there's an
school up there?
emergency, we would always respond first.
Oh, you would always respond
Right,
first.
if
It
it's
doesn't matter
emergency.
where the SRO
Correct.
is. Okay.
He's just there in the building to supplement us.
Yeah.
But if there's an issue somewhere else, we'll surely
Okay.
respond. Increase in the telephone, the cell phones, because we're going to a new CAD system, and you'll see this on our capital improvement. The modem in our cruisers require more time, so we'll have to pick up that tab. Again, we're fortunate that our CAD system is actually going to be funded by the county. A savings for us is over $100,000. So, again, the communication fees, that's the internet, and our connector to Metro, which is through the state, and I have no control over the state of increases. They just pass it on. Health insurance is a 5.4% increase. That's the 2% now that we know. Property insurance, workman comp, vehicle insurance liability, that's all be determined. Social Security is based on salaries, state retirement, city retirement should be a decrease of 2.6. Janitorial should be a decrease. More than 50 years, Billy Gahagan retired from the building. I have to say that because actually he was born here, so Billy has left the building. But we still have to have janitorial. We have an individual that comes in a couple times a week, and the officers, and takes up the rest of this. I still have one officer training. I still have one officer who's scheduled to go to the academy for 18 weeks. We still don't know how that's going to look because that's being housed at Vassaborough. They haven't actually finished up the last academy because of the COVID, so they're still trying to work everything out. So it really puts for away training, the COVID has really put its damper on all of us. Prisoners' meals, again, this is a COVID thing. The jail is full at the county. We actually got a directive today from the sheriff, is if we don't have to, don't arrest. Summons if we have to. Not saying that we won't arrest, we will transport, but they have 4 prisoners or 5 prisoners that the state is supposed to take, and they haven't taken their prisoners. So it's a domino effect for all of us. Our biggest increase is going to be our testing and medical supplies. The testing is drug testing. It costs us $120 per test. If I have 4 different drugs, that's 4 different tests. We just got a bill back from one case. It's over $700. So we asked for restitution, but the check's in the mail for that. It's whatever they... we do, if there's happened to be monetary that we take with drug dealing, we can ask for forfeiture, and we can supplement that. So far, we haven't seen a lot of money. So, but you never know.
Are those sent out?
Yeah, they actually have to be carried to the Augusta lab. So I go down every 3 weeks now and take it
Who
to.
does the draw?
It's a test. It's a test. No, it's not a blood draw.
Oh, really?
It's the drug testing. Drug testing the drugs. So if we get a package of heroin or
Oh, the actual drug. I
Yes.
thought you were talking about,
no, we can get by that.
yeah.
that. So
So when you say restitution, Chief, it would be through the courts.
correct.
After they are charged.
Yeah.
They will owe the city of Caribou.
I get checks for $5, $6, $7 every month
To repay this.
to repay. Yeah, there's a couple cases I don't even know if it's ours, but we take it. that vast amount. The other increase is warranties on our computers and laptops and recording systems and the cameras. And in this day and age, if you don't have a warranty, it's going to cost you 3 times as much to replace it. So, any questions on the budget? We do have a car. Just to let you know, there is a car that's been, it's here. It's been really interesting this year for cars because Ford went to a new model, and as anybody knows, try not to buy the first year model. You wait. So, yeah, it's here. It's we're just getting to change it over and. So
Go ahead.
So you have 3 vehicles, you basically replace one every year, and that's, you
Well,
put enough miles
it
on
used
to
to
get...
be. It used to be every year. It got to 2 years, and then it got to okay when it cost us more money to put into it, or we can't fix it. Or it's getting new cars nowadays is they only make them in October. Yeah, yeah. Don't. So we put this last car was we were they were telling us February before we could get it, but
Is that the kind of thing where Ford just sets up the plant just
Yeah.
to do those
Yeah.
for a month? Oh, okay.
yeah. And what happened was the COVID. A lot of big departments bought a lot of cars because they didn't want the new models. So I think California Highway Patrol bought 350. At one set, and they let them set. State police bought 10 or 12, and it's getting cars is not like it used to be when we bought them off the lot.
Not to get into a lengthy discussion on cars, but any thoughts on the GM Yukon?
Yeah, we actually the sheriff's department's going to the Yukon again. They're a lot more pricey. We're talking 48 versus 40.
But it's a truck versus an SUV, right? Maybe
Yeah,
a little-
but
maybe a
then
little
I
more
have to
robust.
figure in that I have to change everything over on the interior
Right.
cage, and so it's not just the vehicle.
It'd be a transition.
Yeah, it'd be a big transition. And then actually the sheriff's department picked up 2, and they had to go to Tennessee to get it. 2 Yukons. So it's again, I have to look at maintenance also afterwards, something to work on locally. If I can.
I just know those Explorers, water pumps.
Yeah, that was a problem in the earlier models.
Okay.
That was because it was an internal water pump. And again, first year that they tried it, and we kept telling them there was an issue because we discovered there was an issue right off. And they kept telling us we were wrong. We kept telling them apparently we were the only ones in the United States that
Right.
had this issue, but there are lawsuits now out there for it. So, and the problem with the water pumps is you had to pull the whole engine out to fix
replace
it. The first time we ran into that, it was cheaper for me to buy an engine and have it replaced than it was to have them work on it. But since then, they changed that system, and the cars that we do have that, they've learned a new method that, actually, I have one car that's going in next week for that. But it's down to 1,500, so,
Right.
yeah.
Tom?
Chief, what line is all your safety equipment? Firearms, all of that
So the firearms comes under capital.
would be capital.
Yeah, and everything else would be under small reserve, small equipment reserve.
So-
Yep.
So, when we look at all your safety equipment,
Bulletproof vest,
well, I
cameras.
know all that, but where's the number specifically for all of that?
We don't have a specific number. It's
Is it all tied into one?
correct.
So where is that? I guess is what I'm asking.
It's in one of our general ledger accounts.
So is it on this budget?
No.
It gets planned into the capital and then into the reserve account. where they-
So how often do you switch out these safety uniforms? I imagine it's the same thing with Chief, and I didn't ask Chief, and I should have. How often do you switch these out? When's the expiration date? Are we abiding by? I'm sure we're abiding by these
But
expiration dates.
well, kind of depends if you're talking about weapons or vest or
Vests,
vest or
vests,
5 years.
everything, I guess.
Luckily, we get a federal grant
Mm.
that pays half of it. The other half comes out of my capital.
I just kind of want to wrap my head around all of that. I know on like SIG's a SIG. I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna,
we put
it's
our
gonna
money
last,
aside
yeah.
for SIGs, and every 7 years we change those out.
7 years.
7 years, that's the recommended.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if I could just get a line item on all that stuff. If you could do that, please, Dennis. Now I got some other questions that I'm going to ask you later on, Chief.
Got anything there? Got anything?
I'm good.
Girls? Thanks.
Capital, did you
Yep.
want to?
Yeah. I didn't say sit down. We
Okay,
didn't-
no.
I didn't hear
No,
any, no
no.
one said that. Just kidding you.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding you.
I'll just hang around here.
Page is that?
Well,
It is page
20.
yeah.
Let's get the green in the center. These aren't numbered.
It's the blue.
It's look for the yellow band, and it's the blue above that.
flip it.
Right there.
Right there, baby.
So the capital requests this year are, we currently are holding a $4,500 negative account balance in the vehicle fund, vehicle reserve fund for the police department. And so we've at this point proposed to fill that hole in. $600 for a new office computer and $45,000 for replacing the cruiser. I believe that was the last number I got from Laura downstairs.
Yep.
is the quote for replacing the cruiser. And then there is a one action item from the Criterion Brown report as far as replacing the garage openers and repairing the photo eye garage. Again, I don't know that that's going to take $900, but that was their recommended number from their report. And you'll see, if you look the next year over in 2022, you'll see that we've started to look ahead at building up a gun replacement fund in 2024 by being able to put $5,000 a year aside for gun replacement. And we have a replacement of cruiser each year for the next 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Any questions?
So I just have one question. I noticed one of the candidates running for council took a tour and made mention of a computer down there with Windows 95 and couldn't believe it. So kind of along the same lines of some of the other questions I've asked, have you ever asked to replace a computer and this body has said no?
No, actually, if I had to replace a computer, I just replaced the computer.
Right.
Nowadays, I usually call Oak Leaf, and
Right.
matter of fact, I just replaced mine, and so it's, yeah.
I didn't appreciate kind of the context which that was kind of presented like, well, I mean, they're using a computer that's 25 years old and it didn't really pass the smell test.
I didn't give the tour, so.
Okay. I didn't think so.
No. Yeah,
Still got the DOS system.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
Where's the computer that's running on Windows 95?
I don't know.
I didn't see it.
You know, I actually, some of the older computers might be out back, but I don't.
May have been yours, Chief.
It could have been I had a 95, and I just was afraid to go update. So
No, I appreciate you
Yeah.
clearing that up.
yeah,
Yeah.
was mine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
The next two accounts are the housing and the FSS account, and so we've asked Ken Murchison to come up and present those.
Housing.
So good evening, Mayor Gahn and city councilors. As Manager Marker says, I'm here to talk about housing tonight, but don't worry, I brought Lisa Ford with me just in case I get too far in the weeds, so she'll bail me out. Just as a quick explanation of Caribou Housing Authority, early in the 70s, here in our community, there were several developers doing ambitious housing developments. So the city opted not to build buildings, but rather to go with a Section 8 housing plan instead. This has been greatly complementary to those housing developments over the years. Last year, Caribou Housing Authority benefited the housing industry in Caribou to the tune of about $870,000. This year, we're already at $800,000. So it's not insignificant the impact that this housing has on the industry here in town. We've really only got a couple changes from last year. Of course, everyone's talking about the 53rd week. So that's always there. Some of the more interesting changes come in that we've never really had a legal line. We've always come under the city or with MMA to do our legal work. Our court cases are trending higher now for whatever reason. So we've actually gone out and requested bids for more housing specialist type legal practice. We put a placeholder for $7,000, but this would be a fee for services, so conceptually could be zero. But when you're using legal help, you can go $1,200 in a hurry. Just a quick research, an opinion, in one appearance in court, and you're already tipping the scales pretty heavy there. Also, we wanted to put in a line that reflects our share of Oak Leaf service to the building. So Bob Sowers comes and does our computer maintenance. It's an outstanding service. Our share is about $70 a month. We wanted to make sure we reflected that in our budget. We also show a new equipment cost of $500. We really don't have projected, like replacing a computer or anything like that, but especially in time of COVID, everything we're doing is either on a computer or via the mail. If we go down, we're helpless. So we wanted to have a dollar value in there. So if we lose a hard drive, a monitor, a tablet, we could replace it quickly and get back to work. The other thing we're looking at this year that hasn't been done, I'm thinking in the history, is we've gone out to request quotes for our fee accountant. We've been using the same company for years and years. We think it's a good thing to check the temperature and see if maybe we can find services that are more up to date and perhaps can be done online. So if we want to look at our accounting mid-year, we can have that assessment done over the distance through the computer on our software package. So they can come right into QuickBooks and they can do a quick look at our books and say, you know, good job, look at this, concerned about that. Currently the service we use, the gentleman's been outstanding over time. He's getting close to retirement age. Actually, he's way past retirement age. He's done us a favor, really, working for us these past few years. So we're getting ready to, you know, when he does finally retire, we'll be without this service. So we're looking and we're carrying that line this year at $5,400. So those were the high points as far as housing goes. Any questions?
You're going to keep that, the fee accountant until he.
Oh, we're not going to go without, we can't go without the service.
No, but I mean, where he's done a good job, or you're going to keep him until he decides to pull out, or?
We're actually using him to say, what do you think? He's actually guiding us.
Right, just what I mean is, so if he's been good service to us, we'd hate to show him the door until he's ready.
We think the world of Jim Otis, and
Yeah.
we don't want to undercut him.
Yeah, yep, thank you.
Ken, in housing, how many clients do we have? Does Caribou have?
That's why I brought the professional.
Currently, Caribou Housing is allocated for 193 vouchers a month for 193 families. Currently, the past few months, we have been averaging about 174 families. Since, I will just give you a little bit of statistics, since June, we have sent out over 200 letters off the waiting list. Families are not responding. The last batch, we sent out 30 letters, 4 families responded. We don't know what's happening. But we are trying our darndest, and I will tell you another thing. If there's anybody out there that knows a landlord that has rental properties, we are in dire needs of landlords. But we have we're allocated for 193.
And there's just not a demand, my understanding you correct?
There is a demand, but families are just not responding off the waiting list.
Okay.
They may have gotten housing somewhere else. They may have moved and didn't notify us. If the letter doesn't come back to us in the mail, we have to assume that they got it.
Yeah. Thank you.
174 families you're taking care of, clients that
Correct.
are using the system?
Correct. And if I had to guess, about 75 to 80% of them are elderly disabled.
Okay. After you have these 174, how many apartments would you have that aren't being utilized?
Well, we don't have the apartments, so
okay,
I don't know
yeah.
that. I don't know what's out there. Honestly, I don't know what the rental market is. I can just know that we have 174 units being rented.
Okay, then let me try this.
Okay.
You have 174 clients you're taking care of. The 175th comes in the door tomorrow morning. Do you have a place to put them?
If they were to come to top of my waiting list tomorrow and they're eligible, yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you.
So when we talk about housing, we also talk about family self-sufficiency. So our family self-sufficiency program is actually grant-driven. Really, there aren't many changes this year. Oh, excuse me. I lose track of that. Of course, the 53 pay period effect happens here as well. As I said, this is solely grant-driven. Both these departments are enterprise accounts, fully funded by Housing and Urban Development, so HUD. So the money we expend, we get reimbursed for. This particular program, Family Self-Sufficiency, is really kind of unique in that we help counsel people in how to get housing, how to better take care of their budgets, how to get education, and even how to become a homeowner. And ultimately, they can actually graduate, buy their own home with escrow monies that they've been able to put aside over the course of the program. It's really a great way to get people back in society and pay taxes to the city. As I said, there's really no big changes in this one this year, except for a little bump in that 53 pay period.
If I can interject just a little bit of
Sure.
good feedback.
Certainly.
We've actually had this year, one home ownership, a young lady who has actually bought a house, who graduated from the FSS program. And I believe in January, if not February of 2021, we're gonna have a young man graduate from the FSS program with over $20,000 in his escrow account. So just a couple good notes with that program.
That's all I have.
Any questions, comments? Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Mayor, just a quick reminder that these budget forums are also an opportunity for anybody from the public that would like to
Geez,
comment
that's right.
on any of these.
That's
They
right.
have the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Make sure you leave that window open.
Yep, forgot about it. Anybody got anything to say? Now that we've gone through it, I should have done it at each department. I apologize.
I don't have a question for this week, but last week, I have a question on the CUD 2% projected increase. Because I've had a lot of people ask me how you come up with that. I assume you're PUC regulated, and I know there's a formula that you use that I looked it up, and it's a complicated formula. I wouldn't even begin to know how to start. It's based on population and things like that. They wanted, the biggest question was how you figure it out, because it's hydrants and it's water usage in the hydrants. So did you have like 2% more fires this year or whatever? They just, how does an increase in that come about, or how do you justify it or whatever? Because
Counselor, I know you're addressing Counselor.
Yeah, I'm
Thompson,
sorry.
But I need to clarify that the number that I had in the budget was, again, estimate.
so you didn't get that from the
We
CU?
haven't seen the official number from CUD yet.
Okay, well, see, I think that's probably then that's the misconception that they had, was how did the CUD come up with the 2% increase? So that didn't come from the CUD. Okay,
We're still waiting for that number for 2021. from
okay,
CUD.
yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember you saying that statement, that you had not received the number from the CUD, and this was your best guess.
But
Okay,
I
yeah.
remember that was,
Budgeting.
I remember that was said during the meeting on open session.
Okay, yeah.
Continue.
All right, so we're the bottom of FSS, or Fund 96 page, you'll see that there are two lines there. One that says total enterprise accounts, and one that says total all accounts. The total enterprise accounts, so that includes the economic development, the housing fund, the snowmobile maintenance fund, and Section 8 FSS. And so right now, with the numbers that have been presented so far, we're looking at the total enterprise cost being about $556,000, or a reduction of about 1.1% from last year. When you look at all of the total accounts, enterprise and other operating accounts, again, based on the numbers that have been presented to date, right now we're looking at almost a 10% increase over the 2020 adopted budget. And so that is, it's roughly a $1 million increase. And again, just a reminder, at this point, the presentations have been, this is the request. And now it's the time where we start to say, based on the requests, what kind of things do we need to start massaging? Where is there some possible room for adjustment? And the biggest contributor to the increase really is the capital improvements in the plan. And that's where I wanted to spend a little more time tonight, is going through all of the capital projects again, making sure we understand what's what and what has been put into where. And so the next page of your packet is where we start getting into some of that. At the top, the sky blue line you'll see is the airport. And as a reminder, we were...
Hold it, Dennis. Where am I here? Please, I apologize. First one. Airport, got it, thank you.
Okay. So what you see there for the airport is a $130,000 apron overlay project with the use of $70,000 of their current airport reserve funds to help pay for that. You may recall that the state did a pavement study of all of the airports this year, and what they sent to us was a final report that indicated we needed to do a complete resurfacing of our apron areas. This year, we went through the effort of doing the crack seal to just try to preserve the integrity of what's there. There are a couple of places where the crack seals, we know, is probably not going to hold because of the size of the cracks. But this is one of those projects in 2021 that the state is, in a sense, dictating that we need to do in the year. The next project you see is a general capital project. This is, we assume, a completion of the study on a new police station. In 2020, we spent roughly $26,000. That process, where we're at right now, is the architects provided us a concept floor plan, which was, in their eyes, would be the ideal floor plan. But in looking at that, even from the staff level, we saw that there were several things that we could probably take out, combine together. Overall, we're still in a process where we need to, again, massage what is it that we're trying to actually accomplish, what is the footprint that we need, and what can we not get away with. But again, we're trying to get this project to where it's financially something that is going to work. And we have looked at several existing buildings and also looking at a clean greenfield type of construction. There's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done really before we can take anything to the voters and say, this is what is being proposed. But we anticipate in 2021 that we would finish that study process. If it is able to go to a vote and the citizens approve it, you'll see that in the next column in 2022 that there's an assumed price amount of $4 million for a new police facility. We don't know, again, what that price tag is going to be, but for capital planning purposes, starting to look into the future, and we anticipate that we will be bonding for that facility. And the bond itself will have to go to the voters for approval because it's over the $500,000 threshold. But 21 really is the effort to just get us the number that we can take to the voters. And then in 22, if it passes, that's when you'd start looking at additional design costs and construction costs related to the overall facility. In 2021, we have our final engine payment with the fire service, or the fire department. The capital plan anticipates that in future years, rather than just dropping that payment off of our capital list, we roll that payment into paying off the biomass boilers sooner so that we can get out from underneath that debt faster. And you'll see that in 2021, our biomass boiler payment is $109,000. In the future years, because of combining those payments together, we're able to shorten our biomass boiler debt by a couple of years. You'll see in 2021, again, looking at the splash pad and the construction there, the dollar amount that I have in here right now is the splash pad and the proposal that we also roll in the cost of paving the overflow area at the same time so that we have a completed park area between the rec center and the new Teague Park. We would look at, based on our earlier discussions tonight, what funding do we have available in the current reserves, and being able to replenish those over time. But we think it really makes more sense if we're going to loan against anything, let's finish the project overall and make a nicer end product. And so you'll see that right now in future years, loaning against ourselves, we have a plan that we would incorporate repayment of those funds over a 5-year period with, and I believe I was looking at a 1.5% interest rate. But again, we can adjust that in a future meeting.
So Dennis, the funds that, when we go back to page 2 of our packet, funds needed to finish $214,441. It's actually $257,040 because we want to finish the parking lot, correct?
If we're going to finish the parking lot.
If we're going to finish the parking lot. Okay.
And Gary's still here.
Yeah, he is. He's
what
been
was the
on.
bid for, did we get a bid or just a quote on the parking lot paving?
We got a quote, and it was about $40,000 with our public works prepping the whole area of paving it.
So yeah, this $257,000 is roughly that overall cost of the splash pad and the paving.
So would you go off that $257.40 amount in your calculations as far as paying ourselves back instead of the $214? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We've talked quite a bit about the fire department. Again, what we're looking at there is the roof repair project, using reserves for that. Nothing's changed from what was presented before on the fire department numbers. we still anticipate that we would do a remount in 2021. Based on the rotation plan, the next remount would occur in 2022. And so we have, again, trying to look at smoothing out some of those expenses, putting some of that in 21 and the other in 22 for the ambulance number 23 remount. There was no recommended, other than the roof repairs, and there was no other recommended maintenance issues that Criterion Brown had brought up to us for 21. We've already talked about the general government capital tonight, so we'll skip over that. The library, again, they were looking at some of the Carnegie roof repairs, some of the exterior painting, lintel repairs, and whatnot. Municipal building, and again, just to remind you, if it's an orange text in the document, that means that it's a Criterion Brown identified maintenance issue from the reports. Numbers, as we've seen so far, are likely inflated a little bit. The municipal building, we talked about those again, looking at some sidewalk repairs, the boiler repair. We have the boiler repair in the 21 accounts, but we're working towards having that taken care of this year. Just a quick update, we are going to be meeting Wednesday with Mechanic Services. They're going to look at the boilers and give us another idea of possible options on the pellets. And so there's more information to come on that. We've talked about the police department already on the next page. The yellow band that you'll see below the police department, this is a similar setup that we've been talking about with the splash pad, but with the street lights, and paying ourselves back some of those funds that we used, some of those one-time funds. You'll see that in 21 we start putting aside, we're showing $27,600. The assumption is a 2% in rate over 10 years to pay ourselves back the use of those one-time funds. And then there's also $10,000 that we start setting aside as a streetlight replacement fund. We know that the life of these lights, it's a 10-year warranty period with a projected life of anywhere from 20 to 25 years. And so at some point, we need to start building up the replacement costs and having that fund. And so what we're showing here is that we start building that up by setting aside $10,000 each year into the future as those needs arise. And so this $37,600, this is in addition to the protection fund that we've already talked about on the operations side, on the operation and maintenance side. Public Works, again, we've talked through that, looking at using some of the current equipment reserves, current building maintenance reserves, starting to chew away a little bit at the River Road account balance, and putting money aside for future major projects and some major equipment. On the recreation and park side, the last page, the brown area. Again, we have $50,000 that we're looking at to start building up towards the Collin Pond reconstruction, or I don't know if we would want to call it that from an environmental standpoint, but being able to bring back the pond, anticipating that in 2022 is when we'll be able to actually do some of the work there. They have the replacing of the zero-turn mower. We've noted the current Discovery Center grant of $75,000 being used, and the current pool reserve account of $126,000 being used to offset the cost of the splash pad, which was noted up higher under our debt section. There are other projects that we've anticipated with the Parks and Recreation. As I've said before, the Collins Pond in 2022, you'll see that we anticipated $45,000 in '22 for paving the overflow parking lot. If we roll that into this year, obviously that will reduce the expenses in '22. We have other groomer replacements that we're looking at. The groomers themselves are fairly expensive, and so we're looking to start building up some funds for that. And again, using some of the Collins Pond Reserve. For the recreation center, there are some general repairs we need to do to the parking lot, the sidewalk, and overall, we've already talked about on the last color there, the tax assessing department and what they have for this year. The representation of, I guess, a summary of all that is the bar graph in your packet. And what you see here, as we look at the combination of requested projects, both from a new projects, new equipment. There's carryover projects like the splash pad where we've spent money this year. We're going to carry it over to next year to finish it up. The fire station is a carryover project. You can see that there's kind of a hurdle that we're looking at having to face in '22. And this year, just the requested funds so far this year, we're looking at almost $1.3 million in capital. In '22, as we look at, again, carryover projects, building up reserves, and trying to address a lot of the Criterion Brown items that were brought up to us in their reports, you're almost $1.9 million in '22. With the ability, I believe, that we can start to smooth out our capital costs to roughly $1.5 million up until after '22 through '26, and trying to look at maintaining some consistency in the budget and trying to smooth some things out. The black part of those bar graphs, you'll see that includes the repayment of the boilers, the police station bond if we get to that point in '23, the splash pad. And so you'll see that increase to the debt line. The red in '26, the big payment there, most of that is for some large amounts of equipment costs that we have with monitor replacements and stretcher replacements. But again, trying to look down the road at trying to smooth out the budget impacts so we can create a little more consistency across the board. I did want to show this pie graph that I put together this afternoon so that you can see it. It's not in your packet, but I have it on the board tonight. You'll see that the purple area, it's a little over $500,000. These are the projects that we would say have been dictated to us, such as the airport apron repair project, or that we've carried over into the next year, trying to complete those projects. And so you also have, again, some of the Criterion Brown items that are rolled into this $500,000 of capital. The yellow portion, or 18% of all the capital costs, these are the carryover projects. So this includes the rec center, or not the rec center, the splash pad, carrying that over, the continuation of the police station study. And then you have this olive color, which is carryover equipment in that we've anticipated purchasing some equipment and we've been carrying funds forward in order to make those purchases. The two blue pieces of the pie, these are what would be new equipment or new projects in the capital proposals. So this includes $150,000 for major road project, would be rolled in as a new project in this pie chart. If there's new equipment that's being purchased at the rec center or the $7,500 plotter for tax assessing, anything that's new is in this final 24% of the total capital request this year. So when you look at what's been mandated or has been identified for maintenance or as a carryover project, overall you're looking at almost $750,000 in just that side of the capital request for 21. Historically, in 2018 and 19, coming back to the bar graph, you'll see that we were sitting around $750,000 in 18 and 19, and then in 2020, we cut that down to a little over $500,000. And so this definitely is a jump from where we were looking at in the past 3 years. At this point, that completes all of our budget forums. Certainly you can open it back up for any public comment, and then if we could have some discussion on the direction that you'd like me to take moving forward.
My philosophy on the capital budget is, first of all, could you tell us at our next meeting how much of our budget is due to increases due to operating, and how much of the budget is due to capital? I'd like to say, as far as if we just look at the capital, I don't think it was hard for anyone to say that we got to look at this real hard. Not only, yes, we're talking dollars, but mission statements come into play. What's our goals? What's our objectives? We got to look at it from all angles. But I remember a couple of counselors went up to review the fire station, and I got handwritten notes back from both of the counselors, and they were frustrated. They were troubled by how much money we're going to have to invest in, and it just isn't the fire station. You can go look at this building, look at the police department, and it isn't going to be long, and we're going to have to start repairing the rec department. And you're doing it. You put it in here,
Right.
which is the wise thing to do. But it's going to require some thought. Anybody got any other questions, comments?
It's just a shame that over the years that these buildings have just been let go. As an afterthought, or seems wages and benefits and everything else, gets taken care of, but people's assets get left behind, so that now we are thrown with a big nut here to crack because of lack of people paying attention to what was going on. Everything else got covered. Anyway, it's sad. Thanks.
Well, it is what it is. No sense, and we're gonna tackle it, and we're gonna deal with it. But I'll quote him, this is a big nut. And I guess because of its difficultiness and we're trying to maintain an infrastructure here, and our population loss is just not working out, and we have to make some philosophical points of view, along with it's going to require more money. So it's a combination. So, okay. Thank you, Dennis. Am I leaving this conversation on capital with, you're gonna go back through it now? What, was there, at different reporting times, people have said, well, those numbers have come in high, we think we can do it cheaper, or less expensive. I've heard that, haven't I?
I think we've seen so far that the Criterion Brown is probably a little high, so we can certainly go back and look at, again, their numbers are assuming things are getting done that year by probably outside consultants and.
Right,
other
I've heard
things.
that, yeah.
And
And you're gonna go, and you're gonna go through this now and kind of look at it from that angle, right?
We'll try to pull out what we can. It's
Have you already done that?
not with the Criterion Brown numbers. I've taken their numbers on their face value for 21.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
So overall, now that you've talked operations, last year as a council, you said, Dennis, go back and don't exceed this. Is there a point like that that you want me to try to hit as I prepare the November 15th information?
I suspect, yes, we're going to have comments on it at the next city council meeting, which is October 16th. November 16th, which is obviously too late.
My report's going to get sent out November 15th. And then at that point, you as a council can chew on all the numbers. But if I can get my numbers in the direction that you want me to go, then it makes the December process a little bit easier.
Always, I hope that charter thing passes. Holy cow. Well, because this is what's wrong with us right now. I mean, you know, we just got through the departments. Well, anybody got any ideas?
I don't see anything wrong with seeing what happens tomorrow. And then when we reconvene on the 16th, is it the 16th or the 9th?
16th.
On the 16th.
Yep. Okay. I'd like the council to really consider, no matter what happens, whether the decision has to be made by December 15th or whether the decision has to be made by what the new charter rules say.
March.
And if we're averaging $800,000 over the, you know, in past years, you know, I can't be in, I don't know if a 1.5 increase, $800,000 increase is something, but I think as a council, and if you look around and look at our assets and look at our buildings and look at all this stuff, I mean, I think we got to be talking, I don't know, $250,000 more, and work our way toward that goal. At some point in time, that $100,000 comes out of here that we're paying on those boilers that aren't doing us a darn thing.
And again, what I've tried to
And
do
you've
is
accounted for that.
roll that into
Ye-
getting out of debt sooner.
Yeah.
And maintaining those payments.
Yeah. See, so it's just food for thought. I'm one counselor that I'd like to get started on the police station issue. And I want to continue on the blight issue. But the police station is obviously the big one. What are we going to do here? So, where did you come up with the $4 million price tag on that?
Some of the very early concept numbers that we had from the prior architects working on it, they said if it was just a slab-on grade police station, this was the number back in, I think, 2018. They threw out close to $3.5 million. You know,
See,
2 years down the road.
yeah, but that's a price range that I can live with that price. We're talking prices, now we can play. Now we can talk. We can sit down. But when we went through that $13 million deal, because there was all this grant money and it never came back, that committee met again. And they came back with almost an $8.5 million Plan B, as I recall.
Right. It was a phased
Right.
safety building.
Right. Now, I really think the citizens of Caribou could have a real decent conversation if we're talking these numbers that you're throwing in here. Not that that's the catch-all, but it really gets a conversation started, and I think there'll be a lot more people at the table trying to answer this problem. It's just my opinion. Okay, let's go with Hugh's plan. You're going to give us a report by the 15th.
Yes.
And on the 16th, we're going to come back and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Would you be able to get to us, how much of an increase are we looking at, just talking about operating? Could you send that to us? Or do you know it? Just the operating?
I can pull it up for you right now.
For the total?
I got a number.
For the, what is it? Give me a guess.
I came up with negative 115,000 on expenses.
On the operating side, of all the departments?
Yep. And a negative 6,000 on the enterprise. So it's the capital that,
I get it. But I mean, I started the year with a goal of seeing if the city could come in with the same amount of money of expenses as they did the year before. And it's to be commended. It really is. It's to be commended. Now, it's our job to pony up and realize where we have to put some investment money into. I think because we're talking such large numbers on capital, I don't think we ought to forget how good of a job it's been done on the operating side of this thing. And if we ever get that damn third leg on the stool called revenue, and if we ever start getting this town to start having more taxpayers in it that are actually paying taxes, this capital won't seem that bad of a problem. But we're not looking at the revenue side. as a community. I don't think we're looking at the revenue side as strong as we should be. But I got off the rails. I'm on a roll. Thanks. Appreciate it, Dennis. Want to thank all the department heads. Great job. And look forward to all the input when we start talking about this capital thing. It's a big nut. No, your comment was a big nut.
You're not far from
Okay. 6B, Manager's Report. Dennis.
So, Corvair and the CDBG program, this is going to be on your next council agenda for an action. Not necessarily for the CDBG program, but you may recall that the city entered into an agreement with Corvair as far as reimbursing some of the cost of their expansion with the new backup generator system. And so it's that time of year again where we review their numbers as far as the number of jobs that they've added to their overall operation, and make a determination on if they've met the standard that they need to get the reimbursement for 21 that is in the agreement. Overall, on the events and marketing, very positive outcome from last night, I understand. Halloween night.
Yeah.
I don't know if is there anything more about that?
We were all dressed up. Gary was a banana.
Did you take pictures? Christina, did you take pictures? That's what I want to know. Good.
Matt was a taco.
We had about 1,000 bags made up. Probably went through about 800 kids. So it was a very, very successful night, despite what we're going through with COVID.
Lots of smiles.
The next item, the blight cleanup, I'm happy to report that the reports that were submitted to the state as far as the final cleanup procedures for Birdseye have essentially been approved. The state sent a letter back to CES, who's our consultant on the project, and basically said, yes, this is great, let's move forward. CES, having been involved with this type of work in the past, has asked, or is sending a response back to them asking that they include some other specific language in the state's letter, just so it's a little extra CYA for us in the future. But the hope is that with the state now buying off on the final steps for the cleanup, we can put that out to bid this winter, and in the springtime be able to finish up the cleanup of the Birdseye site. The Hilltop Senior Living, that has received certificates of occupancy on all of the individual units, and we anticipate a ribbon cutting ceremony coming soon. They don't have a C of O on the whole building yet. There's still some elements that need to be wrapped up, unless Penny's got an update tonight on that. So happy to see that one getting ready for occupancy. And unless you've got any other questions on anything else on the economic side, SavvyLinks, which is going into the VMS building. We can now call it the SavvyLinks building, I think, but they're still looking for new hires. And so if you're interested in working in that call center environment, they are accepting positions there. Excited to see that. Pronto Burrito's been open now, and planning a ribbon cutting for them as well. The fire structural study and repairs, we have a pre-construction meeting on Wednesday, November 4th in the afternoon to look at, to sit down with the contractor and actually get firm dates for when the work will take place. So after that meeting, we'll send out an update so that you get that info before the next council meeting. Obviously, we're finishing up the 2021 budget process. The tax acquired property policy, this is after the manager's report, talking about the potential tax acquired properties list, so we'll get into that in just a minute. The paving work for parking lots is done for 2020, and the boiler system, I've already talked about that tonight. Don't know if there's anything else that's a major discussion tonight, unless you have any questions about anything else that's in the report.
This investment money that we have invested, is it still in a checking account?
It's in a separate account, yes.
Okay. After all the financial stuff gets, the budgets, depending on what happens with the charter vote, we ought to get seeing what we're going to do with $3 million.
Yes. All of the cities right now are looking at investment potential, and there's not a lot there in the most stable markets. But I know the council has asked for a presentation from the investment broker, and so we want to do that here in the near future as part of that discussion about the $3 million.
Is lending money to yourself? We've placed a lot of, this $3 million has really got to be secured attitude as we've talked about this. Is lending money to yourself a big risk in meeting the criteria? The risk is if we decide not to pay ourselves.
Right.
But do the regulators look at that as a big risk?
Not where it's your own reserves. Their regulators aren't going to look at that. They're just going to see you as using your own money. That just becomes a matter of the financial integrity of the action moving forward. Are the
Correct.
citizens going to get the money back?
That's correct. That's correct. Okay. Thanks. Anybody else have anything on this list? Thank you, Dennis.
Okay.
Oh, the Sitel reimbursement. Yeah, keep me up to date on that one, would you, Dennis? Thank you. Okay, now we got something. Hey, wait, let me find it. Number 7, possible tax lien foreclosure list review. When is this got to be finalized? Tonight?
The liens are, they mature or they are executed November 24th. And so this is a presentation to you tonight of all the properties that we're looking at.
Correct.
And on the next council agenda is when we will need to have the council take action on which ones you would like to waive the foreclosure on.
So we could almost look at this as a first read.
Yes,
And might some of these come off by next council meeting?
yes.
Thank you. Okay, give us your report, other than the trigger.
According to the tax acquisition, or tax acquired property policy, we are supposed to have a checklist process that we go through with each of these potential properties. And so this year, we formalized the review process where we now have the report that came from the tax collector back in October as far as which properties to start looking at. This list that's in your packet is already several properties short because they've been coming off. And so we have in this checklist, we have the information from the tax collector, we have the assessor that looked at each of these properties as far as the land and building value. If it's a mobile home, is it in a mobile home park? The police and fire department looked at it to see are there issues that have come up in the past with each of these properties. from a code enforcement standpoint, which of these have unresolved zoning violations, building violations, property maintenance code violations? Are there Department of Environmental Protection issues that have occurred on the property? Or do we see, again, from a windshield survey, there may be some environmental potential issues to look at? We also looked at which of these properties, from a strategic standpoint, would we want to see tax acquired? That might be because of its proximity to maybe a gateway location we want to clean up, a neighborhood that we want to start working more closely at, looking at the land bank potential. Are they just blighted properties? One of these properties is on the river road, between the river road and the river. That it's not the one that we've been most concerned about, but it is one of those that would be strategically one that we would want to acquire. And so when we talk about strategic properties, that's what we're saying, that there might be some additional motivation for the city wanting to see these properties get tax acquired. We also looked at, is the property one that's most likely going to have to be demolished if we tax acquire it? And then based on all of this criteria so far, I came up with what I call a potential liability score. And what that number represents, that based on all of the issues that we've identified, there's a higher score that we need to be looking at for consideration. And so the overall list is broken down. It's sorted in two ways. One is the top 20 or so are those properties which we can see strategically, regardless of the liability, we probably want to look at acquiring if we're able to. And so the next list, or the next part of the list, you have a mix of properties that seem to be very clean right now, very low liability score, all the way down to those that we've waived the foreclosure process in the past. And we would recommend, again, that those, you can see those are marked in the bright red at the bottom. These are primarily trailers, modular homes in trailer parks. Some of these properties, the trailers don't even exist there anymore, but we continue to carry the tax lien on the books. And so some of those, if we foreclosed on it, there's really even nothing to foreclose on because it's evaporated, if you will. The trailers aren't there. The lots are not owned by the people that had the lien. So overall, I know when I sent this out, Councilor Kirkpatrick suggested that we add a couple columns that highlight if it's a property currently served by CUD water and or sewer. And so we have incorporated that information here into the spreadsheet, and I can resend this out so you'll see that. The benefit of knowing which of these properties has those access to utilities gives us additional consideration for land bank development or redevelopment potential. And so ultimately, we want to take this list, we'll go through it, and we'll provide you from the staff level recommendations on which properties we don't want to foreclose on or that we want to waive the lien foreclosure. If there's other properties that you as a council see that you want to also look at waiving that, then that's discussion that we can take to the next agenda. But on the next agenda is when we need to have decisions made on these are the properties we're going to waive, so that we can then take those waivers and get them recorded down at the county offices before the mature date. Any questions on this at this point?
This is the entire list.
There is one property that needs to be taken off of this list that was in your packet, and that's property account number 1881 at 905 Van Buren Road. They came in and paid their taxes last week.
Okay.
So, yes, this list will continue to shrink as we get closer and closer.
said it was 901 Van Buren?
905 Van Buren Road. Account number 1881 near the bottom. Or on the second page.
Would this be something you'd run by the department heads also?
They've all seen this list,
They've all seen the list.
except for Parks and Recreation.
Well, okay, yeah.
But
Fire,
Yes.
okay, Dennis, fire,
Yeah.
the police, Public Works even might have, there might be knowledge there.
some of these properties strategically would tie into the trail system, and so we flagged those just from the trail master plan standpoint. If Gary feels really left out, I can make sure he sees it.
He's gone.
Oh, he's not here.
That's that way in too.
Hope, you want it from the library standpoint?
No, that's okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the policy that we have in place requires that we send it to these departments and have them review that. And so I definitely appreciate, we know that there's a lot of time and energy that goes into researching over 70 properties initially and trying to pull this together, knowing that some of them are going to come off. And so it's a part of the policy that in some ways is a lot of spinning of wheels. And the end result is we have a lot of information on properties that we can start looking at again next year when maybe their taxes are due again next year.
Any other questions or comments?
Just, none of these, for occupied, there's, every one of them's an N? None of them are occupied?
That's the information that we've got back so far.
Like that one at 905 Van Buren Road, they came in to pay, but they're not living in it?
We'll review all the information that came back from the departments and make sure we're
That doesn't necessarily mean there aren't squatters, right?
right.
Yeah, but the owner or whatever, they aren't aware, you're not aware if anybody occupied.
No.
Yeah, no squatters.
I didn't go down through the whole list. Is that Surprise Junkyard on here?
It's not.
Taxes are paid.
Taxes are paid. That's too bad.
Yeah, that's one that I thought was on here. It was 498. Access Road is on here. That property is actually 412 Access Highway. So
Okay.
I too wish that was on the list, but
Okay. Thanks. Discussion, number 8. Well, any other questions on this? Okay, go to number 8, discussion by the mayor and council members. Anybody have anything to say?
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Dennis, on September 17th, I sent you an email requesting total cost of shimming, labor costs, equipment costs of Buck Road.
Buck Road.
When will I see that?
I'll follow up with Mr. Willett again.
This week, please.
Okay.
The second thing is we should really take a serious look at this room. We've been having feedback for the past 45 minutes. Maybe the reason why people can't hear us is because of our equipment. Maybe the reason why people ask questions after the answer has already been given is because they can't hear us. We've got to do something with this room. I mean, that equipment back there is as old as I am. I mean, we got to do something. And I know part of that is the Spectrum agreement that we still need to look at. And I'd like to see that here shortly. Figure out an alternative here. We're dealing with archaic stuff. And to try to send that from analog to digital to go to YouTube, it's apparently a nightmare. So we've got to do something, and have to.
I'd suggest adding it in as a line item, we can hash it out,
Yeah,
you know, under capital.
Right.
I'd like to see that. Ultimately, it's up to you, Mark.
Well,
Well,
it
We
would
can
be
get a cost estimate from Oakleaf on if we're going to, in a sense, strip what we've got and put a new up-to-date system in here. What does that look like?
Yeah,
And see.
that would be nice if we could figure something out. I mean, go from there.
Okay, did we have anything to do in executive session?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. So the next meeting will be on November 16th. One last time, anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Hugh, seconded by Tommy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Everyone have a great day.
Danielle, make sure you count.